Hi everyone, this video is on book genre in early childhood. My subtitle, is it literature or informational text? This is Muriel Rand from New Jersey City University. Let's take a look at book genre. So what does genre mean? It just means the category of book. Genre is a French word that we use for any kind of category of any kind of art. We have genre in museums as well, for example, and in concerts. But right now we're dealing with literature, so it's just the category that the books fit in. So we have two large divisions that we use in our state standards. The first is reading literature, and the second part of the standards is reading informational text. It's important to know whether the book you're using is literature or informational text because you're going to teach different skills with the different genre. So let's start with literature. Literature are stories. They are narratives. Narrative means that there's a beginning, middle, and end. It's stories that are written in time order. First we did this, then we did that, then we did this, and then we ended with it. Also included in literature is poetry. Poetry is more about feelings and ideas, and it's noted by its figurative and sensory language. So it's more about playing with language. But both narratives and poetry are included in our state standards. Informational texts are factual books. They are organized by topics, so there's no beginning, middle, and end. For example, I was just reading a book about, it's called From Seeds to Plants. And one part of it was all about seeds, another part of it was all about how plants grow, another part of it was about how we eat plants, another part of it was about where plants grow. Those are all topics, and there was no real beginning, middle, or end. There's no conflict and resolution. It's just topics, and the focus is on educational learning. Typically, these are books about science or social studies. Now, sometimes people get fooled by realistic fiction. These are narrative stories that could be true, but they aren't factual. So often we have stories about a little boy or a little girl or family that are made up. What they actually do in the book could be close to real life. Again, that's why it's called realistic fiction. It could have happened, but it's not a true story. Like, think about the difference between like one of you was talking about a book where a little boy learns to use the toilet. It could be true, it could be factual, but it's not really factual. There's not really a little David who is going on the potty. This is an artist that has created this character and created the pictures. There's often a theme or a lesson to be learned. That's why I think it's unfortunate that sometimes we group the genres by the author's purpose, because in literature there's also a purpose. There's usually a theme or a lesson to be learned. Think about Rainbow Fish. Obviously, this is not an informational text because the fish are talking. The animals in the sea are talking. Animals don't talk. If you have animals that are talking, it is by definition literature. But there's a theme, there's a strong lesson. So you might think, oh, well, that's a book where we learn something, so it must be informational. But that's not how the genres work. You can learn something from any kind of book. In our state standards, the books are organized by how they are structured. And narratives are structured by first, next, and last. So biographies, for example, are actually literature. And informational texts are organized by topic. We also have opinion texts that are not really in our standards. They're in our standards for writing. We're going to get to them in writing, but they're not in the standards for reading. They would probably be considered literature if they're not true. You know, like My Teacher Would Make a Good President, whatever that book is. That's still literature because even though it shares an opinion, it's not true. Or I Want an Iguana, right? That's a good example. That's still literature, even though it's written in an opinion format. So again, informational texts have to be factual. Now, there are other genres that are subsets. So mystery is a subset of literature. Biography is a subset of literature. Chapter books are typically literature. Fantasy, folk tales. Pattern books like Brown Bear, or what's one of the Very Busy Spider, those kind of pattern books, they're more like poetry. I would consider them a form of poetry. So these are all other genres of literature. There are other genres of informational text as well. For example, how-to books or encyclopedias. They would all go into informational text. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, once we know what kind of text we have, that's going to help us to understand what standard to use in our state standards. So if you're unsure, come back to this and look at the different characteristics.